right, it is 7:02. We got an hour and a half from here. Well, welcome everyone out to Orlando Python. Our previous speaker had to delay this month for some time in the fall, but he'll be back. I would know. I work with him. I can bug him all that I want. But he has a really cool library called Video Flow that has been getting a lot of free press lately, so he'll be back to talk about that. For this month, with Solomon talking about we're doing visualization of the Titanic data set.
Yes.
And data analysis regarding that.
Yes, and with that, I thought last night, you know what, the Titanic one has been used so many times, so I want to try something a little different here. So we're going to actually go on the Kaggle website, Kaggle, I don't know how you pronounce it, but we're going to go on this website where anyone ever used it before?
Kaggle, yes.
Yes. So for anybody that don't know what it is, it's pretty much is a website used a lot for data science, and they have a plethora of data sets where you can pretty much play around with, try to utilize it. And there's also competitions that usually sometimes it's one person or it's just a group of people, a team that try to tackle this data set, and they can win money, or sometimes if an employer sees that they're doing some really good stuff, they can actually bring them in for an interview.
Right.
So it's a really cool website if you're really interested in data analysis or in the data science, and I really recommend it. And one of the cool things about it is that this is where the Titanic data set is in. However, there's many other data sets that's here. And I just want to see which one you're interested in. This is a straight live presentation. So basically, I'm not even sure, I haven't even checked out some of these data sets, but we're going to do it together. And the reason why I'm doing this is because in data analysis, or if you're a developer or you're in data science or anything when it comes to web application, you're going to get something new and you don't know what it is, but the employer is going to ask you, I need it done.
Right.
So you have to figure out how you're going to solve it. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to pretty much guide it. It's pretty much a code along. So if you do have a laptop, feel free to use it. In the world of data analysis, data science, Jupyter Notebook is an excellent application for it. But of course, you can also use Atom, Note++, Sublime. There's a whole bunch of different editors, but because of the visualization piece, we're going to use this. So further ado, I'm going to check out, we're going to see a couple of these different data sets, and we're going to see which one we actually really like, that we like. But before I even get to that point, and I'm not here to bash on Excel at all. I actually think Excel has its purpose, but I remember, talking to somebody, and some of these companies, they love Excel. Oh, it's great, you can do everything. And then I can just pull up this one little example why people should really consider checking out Python. So I am going to open up one data set, and should be here. It's actually here it is, the Berlin Airbnb data set. And basically what it is, it's a data set from Airbnb. It has listings for price, location, all that good stuff. Now, there is one in particular that I'm really interested in. I want to look at the calendar summary. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Now, this calendar summary is a CSV file, and it has 4 columns, but 8 million rows. So it's a pretty large data set, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna download it real quick. And if you hear something that sounds like a motorcycle, it is my laptop. It's okay. It's not going to explode anytime soon. And it's an HP. It lasts for a very long time.
It's having to compete with my laptop, which sounds like a jet engine right now.
Oh, very funny. Well, we'll see what happens when I open up this data set. When I open up this data set. Here we go. So remember, 8 million rows, right? File not loaded completely. I wonder why. So we have our 4 columns. Let's just scroll all the way down. It's supposed to be 8 million rows, right? But we have 1,045,576 rows. And the reason for that is because in Excel, that's how far it can go. So let's say if you are playing around with some large data, you will easily miss the last 7 million rows. And let's say if you have to give this in to an employer, and then the first thing they'll see is like, how come the rest of it is missing? And try to explain that. So what I'm gonna do is just show you one of the cool things on Python, what it can do. And whoops, that's not it. That's not it. I'm gonna X these out. So
Would people like the lights off?
That might be better, actually.
You want them off?
promise this thing will not explode. And anybody, I think I've already asked about the Jupyter Notebook. One of the cool things is when it comes to analysis, when it comes to data science, it is really good because of its visualization piece. And it's just a really good tool to use. So I think this was the one I used. I didn't name it. This is a shot in the dark.
Untitled iPod Notebook 47.
Okay. This is the Titanic, but you know what? That's okay. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just take all this stuff out and let's see where this calendar summary is. Actually, what I can do is go to the file, copy the path, and actually, I never asked this before. How many people have used Python? How many people here want to learn more about Python? All right, just checking, you're in the right group. Okay, and I asked that because many people who come to these groups, they haven't, they're curious about it, but never really, tackled Python. But the beauty about it is that when it comes to Python, I can work on analysis for like, let's say it has been years, but let's say 5-6 years. I never touched web development. Whereas someone, let's say, if you're really heavy in the back end, really heavy in the web development using Django, if you're really doing that stuff, the likelihood of you diving deep into data analysis, depending on your employer, it might be there, it may not be, but it's just one of those things where you're always learning. And that's what I really love about Python is that, I always learn something new. So
You have an extra VB.
yeah, I do. Thank you. So I see a zip. This may not open, but let's see. Okay, it's doing something. And granted, nope, that is still the Titanic. Okay. PD is not defined. Oh, duh. Whenever you're doing any kind of analysis, make sure you click on enter in the imports, and in the world of analysis,
that helps.
yeah, it does, right? I use pandas a lot, and pandas is just a really cool tool when it comes to data analysis. When it comes to data science, pandas is also cool, but a lot of people use NumPy, and one thing about NumPy, it has this other, it's dealing with arrays, and it has a lot of really cool things with that. Now, no traceback, which is good. So let's see what happens. It might take a little longer because this is a large data set. And what I'm doing, I'm just opening it up. I'm just trying to see if everything pops up, and it did. And let's see. And here we go. All 8 million rows are there. So, and you know, I can manipulate it. I can throw some seaborn in there to do some visualization. Now, granted, when you have something this big, Python will like process it. But sometimes, if you have a large data set, it might take some time. So just be mindful of that. And you know, that's really it with that. So I just want to show you guys that whenever somebody is gung-ho about Excel, that Excel can do everything, well, let's just open up a large file and see what happens. So that's it with that. That's part one. So let's actually get into some fun stuff here. Let's actually go into Kaggle, and like I said, Kaggle is great for data sets. And again, even if you're just someone that's really new into Python and just wondering where to go about it, because there's different avenues. When I started, I learned in the full stack way, where you learn the back end, and then you learn some front end stuff like, you know, JavaScript, CSS, HTML. But later on, I learned data analysis, which is through Python, which is a whole different avenue. And it's just sometimes you just have to pick which one you're really interested in and really just stick with it. And then once you get the hang of it, you try something else. So let's look at these. And if you want, we can just do the Titanic data set and just go with it. It's already there. But there are some really cool ones here. And there's the New York City current job postings. Actually, they had one which was interesting. They had something about the Nintendo Super Mario Maker. They had data on that, which is on Kaggle, I thought that was kind of cool. And they actually, and then they have something all the way to another one, Craigslist cars and trucks data, and then they have something on suicide rates.
Let's do Craigslist.
Craigslist?
Anyone who doesn't want Craigslist?
Anybody opposed to Craigslist? All right, let's try that. So Craigslist cars, trucks, data. All right. So this is relatively small, and there's one with over 1 million rows, and I don't know where they're getting. I mean, I know where they're getting the data, but I'm assuming when they're querying this data, they're probably using SQL. And anybody ever know what SQL is? It's a database. Anybody ever use SQL? Yeah, it's a database. It's used a lot for querying. So let's try this one. And this has 443,000 rows, which is not too big. And I am going to download it. And Hey,
Seat over here or not?
this thing's gonna open up, but do you have any questions so far? Anybody? Okay. Oh, that's the calendar summary again, so let me X this out. Okay, and this thing is about to be done. So what I am going to do, and you know, one thing in my previous company that I worked for, I did data analysis and that's weird. Okay. The destination file could not be created. Interesting. Okay. All right, well, oh, okay, now it's popping up. So I was saying, the last company I worked for, I was doing data analysis, and when it comes to data analysis, it's sometimes if you have like a small data set, you can eyeball it a little, but a lot of times you have to know how to manipulate the data just to extract it to figure out what exactly you're trying to solve. This is taking a lot longer than expected. And
How big is the file?
it's about 1 million KB.
Million
Yeah.
GB?
So it's
Like gigs.
huh?
Yeah, or 100 megabytes, I think.
That's equivalent to 100 megabytes.
Like, well, Excel has taken a while. You it tried loading it right into Jupyter there.
I could. So let's do this.
Which is faster, Pandas or Excel?
Touche. So let's do this. And you know what? I'll be honest, I never actually just load up to pandas. So, I'm sorry. I know what you mean. Okay, yeah. So let's do this. I know where it's going. Let's take this out. And there are other ways of going about how you open up the data set. And what I did, since this is a CSV, once I import pandas as PD, I just put it as pd.read_CSV. Now, if this was a workbook, it would be an Excel workbook. I would just put pd.read_Excel, and then it would just open up. So this is the data set here, and it is a pretty hefty one. So we got cylinders, conditions, we got the odometer, we got a whole bunch of good stuff here. So let's say I want to get, let's look at the cylinders. Let's say if I want to just get all the rows for 6-cylinder cars. Well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this path. And then the second thing I'm going to do is just copy paste it. Don't make life harder when you don't need to. It's going to take a little bit. And another reason why sometimes it will take long, I have a lot of stuff. I have like a lot of like Python scripts on here, and a lot of it is junk, but a lot of it is good stuff. When I mean junk, it's like I put it into like an Untitled, and like that was something I was playing around, but I never saved it. But one thing that I do, and one thing when it comes to anything with coding, people have this indication that a coder is this one guy that is in the dark that's just typing out hours on end. Well, you will be typing hours on end, but you're not going to memorize everything. You know, that's not true. There's a lot of things that I will not remember, and that's why there's excellent documentation. Let's say if I am tackling Django, for example, I'm not going to remember every script, and a lot of times you shouldn't, because they have it where you have the models, you have the view, you have all that there, and the only thing you have to do is just follow the documentation. Same thing with pandas. You're not going to remember everything. There are some things I do remember, like we're going to go into Loki in a second, but a lot of times just go into the documentation. Go on Stack Overflow if you need to. At the end of the day, it's not about memorizing, it's about creating. That's what coding is about. Being able to just go out there and start creating. Whether you're into analysis or whether you're working for a top secret company, doing some top secret things, or you're just someone that's just trying to create something, awesome for yourself, a website, and just create, just go at it. So okay, we have the data set, and the cool thing about Jupyter, cool thing about pandas is that I don't need this large data set. So I'm going to just get the head of it, and I'm just going to put in 10. Oh, here we go. It's slow when the traceback didn't come in.
Well, it needs to reload the whole data set now.
Yeah. Whoops. So sometimes you have to slow down when you're typing. And the head will, what it does is that it'll give you the top 10, or really the 9 data sets, 9 rows of that data set. And there's also another thing, let's say if you want to see the end of the data set, you can use what's called tail, and you can put in the last 10 or the last 15 or how many you want. So this thing is taking pretty long.
Still faster than Excel.
Still faster than Excel, that is true. Well, in Excel you cannot just put in, you probably can, but it wouldn't take just a second just to type that in and put it through. So while this is taking long. And granted, it could just be my computer. It's pretty, it has a lot of data on here.
Maybe you could insert a new cell and start talking about the next
Yeah.
thing while it's still loading.
Yeah, so that's the trace back. Oh,
In fact, if it didn't finish loading, then it might not have overridden DF, and it might still be in memory.
I see. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do,
Yeah, if DF head still works in the next cell, then you're good.
yeah. So let's do this. There we go. So if I just don't put in anything, it will just give me the first 5 rows automatically. So let's say I want to just tackle, let's say I want to just look up cylinders, right? What you can do in pandas, and this is the cool thing about pandas.
Solomon, would making the text bigger help?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. We can't turn that up, can we?
Can,
Maybe. Down. Sorry.
oh, everybody can see? Let me just open this up. Maybe that'll help. Oops. There we go. Everybody can see? All right, great.
Still can see in the back? All right.
So what I'm gonna do is, I see here, the cylinders. All right, so let me just see what cylinders look like. So one thing, and this is, I don't know why it keeps doing that. I'm just gonna put in cylinders. Hopefully I spelled it right. Oh, I did. Great. So with this, it's just gonna give me that whole column. Okay. And one thing I am noticing that there are a lot of ands, some nans there. And one thing in analysis, if you're dealing with dirty data, you will see NAs, you will see nans. And this is the part where it gets a little tricky, where you're trying to figure out where, well, depending on the data set, am I going to remove some of the rows? Am I going to, or do I need to remove a whole column? And that part gets a little tricky. So when it comes to a data like this, it's you have to actually visualize and see how much NANs are there. So what I am going to do is do a little visualization through Seaborn. And what Seaborn does, it actually give me just it's a visualization set. It has graphs and it has plots. It has a whole bunch of cool stuff that really makes it a lot easier to see your data. So this thing's killing me. It just automatically goes down. Okay.
Yeah, can you just modify the input file to like have like 1,000 rows or something like that? Because it's taking a while to load, right?
No, it's there.
Oh.
It's just the way this is set up. If you have it like too big, for some reason it will just automatically go down.
Something that might work is if you go and you do clear output of the different cells. It might just have a problem with the page being so long with it being there.
Yeah.
So maybe clearing output, it's not going to delete the data frame out of memory, but you'll be able to make it bigger and get rid of the long trace back there.
Yeah. Now, what I could do is just do this, just restart it. Well,
Yeah.
let's do this. There we go. That'll work. All right,
And make it bigger.
make it bigger.
So either pinch to zoom or
Yeah, it worked.
Well, okay. In Firefox, there's also in the hamburger menu there's
Yeah.
the plus and minus that
Oh, yeah.
might work better.
Okay. So everyone can see? Okay, great. So the next piece, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use some Seaborn. So I'm gonna just clear this out. And then I'm gonna input Seaborn as SNS. Oh, I need to put the import. Okay. And let's see. I could just do SNS dot. Actually, there's like a few lines of code to go about it, but I don't have it on me. So this is why I have the this is why I have the Seaborn documentation here, just in case. So this is for a line plot. And if anybody ever used, I think I already mentioned the Seaborn. One of the cool things, there is one that I like to use, and this is really good just for NAs, is to use what's called S null. So you know what, let me just put that in first. DF cylinders dot S null. And then from here, it'll just give me what's called booleans. And booleans are just true and falses. And it'll just give me a better outlook of like what's, which data is there and what data is not there. So from here, the falses are either NAs or NANs, and there's quite a bit here, as you can see. So, or it could just be flat out missing data too. So, you know, the question is, am I going to keep this data, or am I going to just remove it? Or am I going to replace these NAs? So one thing I could do is another thing called is a way to replace the NA. And since, and let's go back to what the cylinders look like. Hold on. There's another thing that it kind of helps to have, what's called D types. Comes out as a O. No, that's right. No, that's the first. You always have something new. So that is the first. It comes out as a O. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do it like this. There we go. And what this does, it gives you an idea of what type of data you're actually dealing with. So objects are strings. You have floats; those are numbers with a dot, like 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. I don't see integers. And integers are just whole numbers. And yeah, so, oh, there is one integer, which is the price. So we have integers, objects, and integer strings and floats. So we're looking at cylinders, and it's coming up as an object. So meaning it will come up as a string. So one thing about strings, there are a lot of things you can do with it. And but for the sake of time, I am not going to tackle too much with it because I had the assumption that the cylinders were going to be floats. I mean, cylinders were going to be integers, and with integers you can play around, do some cool stuff. So if I wanted to plot it, if I want to put in the Seaborn, it might not give me something that I really want. Most likely it will give me a trace back. So let's look at something else.
Let's do price.
Excuse me?
Can we do price since it's already in it?
Yeah, and it's an integer. So let's do price.
Price and odometer.
Price and odometer. I like that one. So let's do this. I actually have, maybe I could do a joint plot with this. Let's see what happens. So with joint plots, I'm not going to mess with this. I'm going to put in what is called a joint plot. And a joint plot, it has x and y, what the x-axis and what the y-axis will be. So let's say the x-axis will be price, and then the y would be, you said fuel?
Odometer.
Odometer. Okay. Let's do odometer. And then it's probably data set here. Yep. And then let's do the kind, Let's use hex. And if you're probably wondering why I'm looking down, I actually have a little guide for myself when I'm doing some of these sets, because like I said, am I going to remember everything out of Seaborn? Probably not, because if you look at the data, if you look at the website, there are a ton of different graphs, a lot of cool stuff here, but I'm not going to memorize every single code. So let's do that, and then it's probably
You think you need a string quote after odometer? 'Cause it looks like
oh
your syntax
whoops,
is-
only have one. Yeah, here we go. And then data is equal to df. And let's see. Oops. You're seeing a lot of typo. And nothing came out. And it's probably because
Well, something came out.
a little something.
They're just all on the bottom right.
Oh, I see.
Bottom
Oh,
left.
wow. Interesting. I wonder why is that?
Maybe all the data is not clean.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm missing.
Yeah, your axis is like
Yeah.
1 million to 1 billion.
Right.
Right.
I see. So what I'm gonna do, I would need to get rid of some of those rows.
Also wondering why the odometer is scaled from 0 to 1.
Can you exclude rows based on if odometer or fuel is missing? You just remove them.
Say that one more time?
If you take the data set
Yeah.
and then basically create another data set where fuel and odometer is populated. So if fuel is missing or if odometer is missing, remove that from the data set. Can you do that?
I see.
And then maybe you at least work with numbers where you're guaranteed to have something.
You could just pull out the two, create a new data frame that is just the prices,
Prices,
just,
just-
the odometer, and then, the only things in the rows, and then run remove NA. So it will remove any row that has
Mhm.
an N and A value in there, and that will do it.
So let's do that. So I'm just going, and if you put a little hashtag, it's just gonna blur it out. So I'm gonna save that for later. Oops, I don't know why that's there. So let's do this. I'm gonna add, let's call it C is equal to DF cylinders, and then let's put oops, not this again. Leave me alone. This is how you spell odometer. Okay. So we have these two data frames. So wait a minute, you're applying to put these two data frames in this joint block?
Well, you would create a new data frame that is just the odometer and price columns.
Oh, I see what you mean. So with that, I would have to do, okay,
Because if you pulled out just the columns by themselves and ran remove NA, now you no longer have joint data.
right,
It's not a one-to-one anymore.
right. So what I could do, so let's do this first. Getting a brain fart right now. Okay, so to wrap this up, once let's see if we can just remove the NAs first. But we want, alright, we're gonna create a new data frame. Got it. So let's call it. It's the ugly name. Wait a minute.
I mean, if we just wanna get a graph up and running, we can run remove NA on the entire data frame. But we will get something out of it.
Yeah, we will get something out of it. So, I think the best bet would be,
You trying to get the columns out?
yeah, well, no, not the columns out. I'm trying to, see, the one thing I can do, I can easily just do this. Dot, I think it's dot remove NA. No, that's not what it is. Is it remove? Well, this is where Stack Overflow kind of comes in.
Drop NA?
That sounds right.
If you drop NA, usually there's drop NA, and then there's, well, I guess,
Says
let's
we-
try drop NA.
Yeah, it just says.
Oh, it says it right there, drop NA. All right. So again, like I said, there's always gonna be a time where, I think I've said this before, we will always have tracebacks, no matter what.
Yeah, just assign that to a new data frame.
Let's do this. CYC, drop. Let's see what happens. This is like an ugly name.
Does work.
It works.
And then you try plotting it.
Alright, let's do that. Alright. This should work, without a doubt. Let me close this. Yeah, let me take this out. Interesting. It's doing the same thing. I wonder if there's something in this one gonna run. Oh, well, let's do this. Let's see if.
Oh, no.
No! Oh, wait,
Oh, man.
no. Oh, it came back. Okay, let's. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it gave, it rewinded a little bit. You lost some,
Yeah, I did.
lost some
Oh,
stuff.
boy. Well,
You got mad.
yeah, it got angry.
But it's still there.
It is still there. So what I wanna do is, let's put in a new data frame one more time and I'm gonna wrap this up. Let's just put DF3 and then let's just look at cylinder one more time. Let's see if I'm gonna see any, oh, I probably spelled it wrong.
Cylinders.
There we go. I don't see anything, so let's put,
Looks like we have less rows though.
we do have less rolls. Let's put it's not. Oh. Is it not null? Always get that mixed up. No. Well, we can still look at it this way and see. Oh. Told you when you're doing a live session, you will get tracebacks. So we do see less rows here. And this is 53,000, but these are all falses here, so which means those are the NAs. And there's the opposite version of it. I'm just having a little brain fart.
No,
here.
that's not the NAs. Is null.
The null.
It's comparing cylinder to is null.
Is
Right.
the null, sorry. The nulls.
So
So-
false means that it
It's
contains a
an object
value.
instead of it's
Yeah.
it being null.
So we would expect that a data frame that has been through drop NA, if you run is null on it, it should, the
all be
total,
false.
yeah, the total number of falses should be the same number as every single row in there.
Right. Okay. So, hey, so this part did work. So we know that if we do put it in there, for some reason it just didn't work out that well. But let's just do this. Let's just see one more time. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just leave it for here for the sake of time. Sorry that we didn't get the beautiful plot that we wanted, but hey, sometimes
Don't get your data off Craigslist.
yeah, that's one, but two
Car
sometimes.
for sale, $100, phone number 444-1.
One thing about data manipulation is that it's not as easy as it looks sometimes. Sometimes you have to really go outside the box. And there are a couple things that could have done, like we were talking about, just make a whole new data set and just see what it will look like once you visualize it. But also you gotta count, actually, you know what? Even if I put a dominator, it will still give me the false because these are all the S nulls. Yeah. So I am going to just end it right here. I wish we had the pretty visualization piece, but didn't happen this time. But I'll make sure next time we'll have some pretty graphs. And hey, that's what live coding is. Sometimes you won't get it in the first shot. Last month I got it all in the first shot. Sometimes you won't get it. And but one thing to remember is that when you are manipulating data like this, even though this is just a small set, always look at the D types that I checked out. So df dot D types, because that will give you an understanding of what kind of data you're dealing with in the first place. So just always look at this as a reference, and then from there you can have a good understanding how to go about it. And good thing there's no timestamps in here, because if you're dealing with time, that's a whole different beast. And I actually had to do that one time, and you can't do it in one line of code. Like, I had to use 3 lines of code to like manipulate the string, convert it into time, because it's not an easy thing. But I am gonna end right now. Thank you for listening, and definitely remember that it's not about how much you can memorize, because as you can see, I didn't memorize everything, but it's about creating. So thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. So before we
Yeah.
start with the next talk, are there any questions? Right.
Do you primarily use pandas to do your data manipulation? Or do you-
Absolutely, yeah. Pandas is the way to go. You can also use NumPy, but I'm not too strong. There's people that are like strong with NumPy because it's dealing with arrays, but I use pandas because it's just easier. And then once you like, maybe next month I am considering doing a web scraping piece, two pandas, how you scrape the data and then put it into a data set. And you'll see how powerful pandas is once you utilize it. So yeah.
No more questions. Well, I guess set up for the next talk. We have stickers over on that table over there. Take a sticker, leave a sticker, do whatever you want. They're going to be here every month. We also have cupcakes over here. There we go.
Richard.
Thank you. So,
Thank you for the cupcakes.
great. Go ahead and grab a cupcake and we'll get started with the next one in a couple minutes.
Sorry for coming in so late. I thought it was at the mileage and stuff. They did away with that, I think. So it's like, there's no point now. It's just to play with it. So, all right. Well, I'm Ian. Solomon, nice to meet you. I know. Glad you're here. Yeah, me too.
So my 25 yeah.
I can look at the files. I just haven't taken the time to fix it. I got here. I guess I'd like to free the space.
All right. So, the second talk. I'm going to the second talk for this month. We're going to go over dunder methods. Dunder methods are anything that use a double underscore. Dunder. Yeah, and if you've written Python classes before, I guarantee that you have used at least one dunder method. And let's just jump right on in and make sure everything is big enough. So, I don't think we didn't ask this one earlier. Who's their first time coming to Orlando Python? All right, I love seeing new faces. Okay, so I love writing code live with everyone, and I put absolutely no preparation into this, so it's going to involve a little more feedback. And I love giving live I do love doing live coding because, like we saw in the previous talk, whenever you're live coding, especially from scratch, you get a lot of errors, and it's one thing to see a perfect demo. it's another thing to see, oh wait, everyone screws up in some way. It's more important to know how to fix your problems than to know everything to get it right the first time. Okay. So I'm just gonna do demo.py and hide that because we're not gonna need it. So dunder method is primarily is used with classes. For the most part, there are a handful of dunder attributes and files. If you've ever seen, if you've worked with Java before or other compiled languages, when you write your main function, you're doing Java int void or main something or other at the bottom of your file. The Python way of doing that is if name equals main. Oops. Yeah. If name equals main, and then you just start writing your stuff down here. This is what I mean by a dunder, is when you have this double under at the beginning and end. And name actually just means, or this is a shorthand for saying, is this a file that is that was called directly to run my program? So if you have this in your file, you can have this this if name equals main in any file in your project, and if you call that file directly, you can have local testing or something or other like that. But dunder method, a method is any function that is assigned to a class. And in Python, we have our class. I talked about treasure earlier, so let's have a chest object, and it includes. Let's just be bland and call it items. And let's just say it's a list of int. If you're not familiar with Python 3, these are called type annotations, and they're available starting Python 3.4, I believe. We're on 3.7 now. But what I was saying earlier, if you've ever made a Python class, you've used at least one dunder method, and that is our init. So whenever in Python, whenever you initialize an object, you can give it values, and when we create our own custom classes, you give an init. So let's do this. Just do items and assign, or I was about to miss self. I do that way more often than I should. So items. If let's do the if name equals main bit from earlier. And let's just give it some values of gold. How about that? So if we go in and try to run this, there we go. Python demo.py. Oh, I forgot my semicolon at the very end there. Oh, and let's print out C. So that's good if everyone can see? Double checking? Cool. So at the bottom we have a chest object and chest object at hex value. That's its place in memory. That's not terribly useful to us. We would rather like to know what's in that chest when I print it out. There are two ways that we can do that to make it look nice. The first is going to, it's a repr, dunder repr. Good question.
What is the self doing?
Oh, so in Python, whenever you have a class, self is a reference to the object's own self. Now, self doesn't, you don't have to call it self. I can call it me for all that I want. It's just generally accepted in the Python community that we call that self. And there's a lot of stuff like that too.
So if you didn't have it, what would happen?
If I didn't have self in that, Python would complain that it got more arguments than it expected, which means that it instead of getting items there, Python itself during the runtime gave self to items, but also then gave it items, but because we were trying to initialize it with a list of items. But without self there, it doesn't know what that second parameter is supposed to be, because it just assumes that that first one is always going to be a reference to the self. And so what we're doing there with self.items is taking the items that we were given in the initializer and saying this, which is part of the chest class, we're going to apply the items that I was given to the self.items that belongs to the class. And yeah, and so if I copy and paste this down, let's do a good chest, and let's have this one be a bad chest. And it only has 2 gold in there. If we print out good chest and bad chest, we're going to get 2 items printed down here. We have two chest objects at 2 different places in memory. So if I were to do bad chest dot items, let's actually do that. I'm going to copy both of these, and we're going to access our items in there. We should get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. So self from within this class definition is only going to be able to access the data that it was assigned for that object at that point in the memory space. And again, we can call it whatever we want. It's just generally accept that it's called self. Now, this whole chest object at memory location isn't really useful to us as a programmer unless you really care about where it is in memory. So what we do there when we are doing this print good chest, it's calling the representation of the object. So if we want to override that, we would do dunder repr. And it's only given, we only give it self, it doesn't take any parameters. And we can return whatever we want it to say. So we can do chest width and print out self.items. And when we run it this time, instead of doing chest.object, we're going to do chest width, and here's the list of items in there. There's something very similar, is if instead of printing it directly, if I wanted to convert it to a string, instead of doing this print, let's do, I have, and what this syntax is relatively new in Python. Instead of doing string.format or %, you just put an F in front of it, and anything inside of those squiggly brackets, it will be evaluated and converted into a string. So my guess is it's not going to call the rep. Yeah, okay, so it called the repr. If you there's another method there that you can define if you want it to be different, called dunder str. Str is string, the actual object type in Python. If we wanted it to be different, just for the sake of being different, it's now something different. It actually overrode our repr. I'm kind of surprised by that. So I'm just going to get rid of it because the other one is way more informative. Okay. Another dunder method that could be very useful is what is the length of our chest? In this case, what is the total number of items in our chest? We could do that already. We have access to .items here. So instead of doing the items directly, we could call Python's length function, len, on that. So if we run it, it has a length of 4. But we're still having to access the items list directly in here in order to calculate that value. If I just wanted to do len of good chest, it's going to throw up an error because it doesn't know how to calculate that value. So we can say, here's how you calculate it by using dunderlen. We give it self again, and actually, if I want to do the return statements, because readability counts. Yeah. Well, anytime that you can be very specific in line with code without putting in a whole bunch of comments, when you read something like this with the developer is making it very clear that this function is supposed to return an integer value. But it's still completely optional in Python, unless you're using some other library.
So, forgive me for being a noob, but I don't understand what the repr does, and I'm not quite clear on what the init's trying to do either. I mean,
Okay.
I understand len, that's pretty easy. But
Yeah. So the init that we have up here is just initializing the values from the beginning.
The values of the chest that
Yeah.
you made.
Yeah, so when we're down here in our main, we're initializing good chest that has this the items that it's now going to contain is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
That gets set here, items, and then inside of here we are setting the internal value of items to whatever we were given in the initializer.
So but the two different variables are part of that chest class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like just about here when it comes to like classes and all that stuff, but I'm trying to follow it.
Oh, yeah.
But what's the repr part?
So this dunder repr is going to override what gets printed out to the console or your idle whenever you do print, whenever you want it to print the object. So instead of that chest at memory space, we can override that with information that is more valuable and more useful to us to tell us exactly what that chest object is, which one.
And that's necessary for it to actually print out their values.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like an iterator,
It's
kind of.
it's not quite an
Is the
iterator.
like a two-string method.
It's pretty much a two-string method.
Okay.
That's a good call. All right.
But it doesn't have to be an iterable.
It's just we're just doing the chest with the items in there, just because you must give the chest items in order to start with. That is a good way for if I had a list of chests and it went and let's say I was iterating through the entire list and then I got an error for some reason. I don't know which chest it errored on. If it's just if it's giving me the memory space, that's great for a C programmer. That's not great for me because I don't know what object in that chest caused it to fail. If I have print chest and oh wait a second, why is there a none in my list of items that I expect to all be integers? That's a really useful case for it.
What purpose does the f have in the return statement, and what would I look up to like?
Oh yeah. So these
Some kind of new formatting syntax.
Yeah, so I love tangents, by the way. Please keep asking questions. I really do. My favorite talks have all just been 2 hours worth of tangents. So in Python 2, the primary way of formatting strings was you would do %d is here, and then you give it this, and whatever value or variable that had an integer, because %d was digits, stuff like that. In Python 3, that's very much discouraged. Please don't do that anymore.
C printf syntax.
Yeah, don't use it. Python is built on C. Don't use C. What we can do, what you can do nowadays, instead of that, we can do .format, and it will. Actually, let me just pull up a Python terminal here. Everyone see at the bottom of the screen, fine? Okay. So I can have a string that is blank is blank. Oh, equal sign. There. So those open brackets signal to Python whenever we call format on it that you should place things here. So if I do s.format and I give it 1 and 2 as values, it's going to do 1 is 2. And if I give it values that differs from the number of things, it's going to say it tried looking for more things than it was given. There are other ways that you can. There are other things that you can do. I'm going to just get rid of the s here. I can, if I want the same item in both places, I can say .format with just 1, and it's going to put the thing at index 0 at that spot. We can also do keyword blanks, keyword things. So let's say name is status, and then instead of giving it just a list of things, I can say name equals Nate and status is bad, and it knows to do that. Yeah. So now, as of what that second one allows you to do is you can feed in a dictionary into this. You know, double star dictionary, and it will automatically unpack and fill everything how it should. But what was introduced in 3.7 are f strings. F strings are wonderful. You should use them. You just put f at the beginning of your string, and now instead of doing key values or leaving it empty or doing that, I can just put, 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 is 4. It evaluates everything inside of there. I had S from earlier. I don't know if that's going to work, but I can probably put S in there. Hey, look, 4 is our string from earlier. You can do all sorts of fun stuff in there, but I find it more visually appealing, and it's actually slightly faster in some cases. I saw your hand first.
I was going to ask, on the F strings, can you still pass in that dictionary unpack?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if I'm going to copy this from before because it's going to be slightly easier. There, and I just make this like that. Oh, I need to put that around there. So we have a dictionary here that, well, with the same information. Maybe this is a native data representation of student, and instead of calling format with all of that information in there, we can do what's called double star unpacking, which single star means I have a list of things, unpack it into whatever I'm using, so that instead of giving it instead of giving this function a list of items, we're giving it item, 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 as though we were typing it natively. Same thing with this dictionary double star. Instead of giving it the dictionary itself, we're doing keyword arguments inside of for that function call. So Nate is bad. You can imagine if we had a list of students in this representation, we could do for students, name is status stuff format, give it the dictionary, and it prints everything out for us.
Yeah, for the one that you validated F, 1 plus 3 is S. Can you just press up twice, up to that, and then after that, dot format star D. I want to see if it evaluates S to that string and then formats it.
So I don't think so, because the S that we have there is only the close brackets. But you know what I bet is, I've never done this before. I don't know which one it's going to evaluate first. I know that's not going to work, but like it's going to get this error, but I don't know what this is going to do. Ha! It evaluates the F string first, then does operations on it like dot format. I didn't know that before. Please don't. Yes, that's a very good. That's why I haven't learned that before.
So the curly braces are there to make it evaluate?
Yes.
If you don't, it's just a string?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh, and
I'm sorry to ask basic questions.
No.
But
Oh, I love
that's where I am.
questions. This F the F at the beginning isn't that far off base because there have been other prefixes to string raw strings before, and actually raw is one of them. So if I did R and then type in whatever here, whatever, it's not going to evaluate anything in that string. So even if I call .format on this, it doesn't know. There's if you want binary representation, I could do B, one blah 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 blah, and that's just representing binary now, not a string. Or that actually no, B might just be a byte string. It's just the string in byte representation. Never mind. I think there's also hex. Don't quote me on that one, but it's not totally out of left field. All right, let's finish our length one here. So let's say the length of the chest is the number of items in the chest. So we would call len on self.items. We're just running back down here. Len items. Run it, and our chest has 4 items in there. So now we have len on our chest. Let's say we want now. Let's have a list of our chests, and I'm going to go ahead and or not get rid of all of it, but let's say I have chests equals, we have a good chest and our bad chest in there, and let's just print out chest for the time being. Our dunder method should still work there, so we get chest with 1 2 3 4, chest with 1 2. Let's say that we want to know what the value of our chest is. And let's assume that the value of our chest is the sum of all of the gold that is inside of it. We could come up here and write, actually, let me look this up, because if I were to, or if we were to run sum on the chess, I don't know exactly which method we need in order to do that. So sum just takes a list and adds everything together. You would expect that when you're summing a list, everything is going to give a numerical value, either being an integer or a float. I think you can also sum up a list of Boolean values, and it's just the number of trues in there. But if we try to run this, oh, I have an extra def in there, that's right. And let's get rid of you. Okay, unsupported operand types 4 plus. This is another dunder method, and I need to look it up. Yeah, there should be. There are mathematical dunders. You also hear people calling them magic or special methods. As much as I love you, stop it. All right. That only came to mind because I have to say it a lot. All right. Where are my mathematical ones in here? Okay. Operator overloading. We'll get to the equal and less than in a bit. Add. I think that's all we need for this one. So let's do def add, and we only take that. Oh, and it does return. In this case, it returns an int. We're going to return the sum of all of our gold in the chest, and that's the value of that chest. Plus int in chest. We might be missing something else then. R add. I think that might just be the exact same thing that we need to do here. Oh, it's self.other. Okay. Oh. Yeah, look interesting. I wasn't thinking it was going to need to do that. I mean, if we wanted to add all of our chests together and just return a brand new chest, we could do that. Yeah. Wasn't quite thinking through that example. Yeah. So let's... Goodness, I wonder if we can even call chest when it's not fully implemented yet. Other.items plus self.items. Now, when you add two lists together, it just returns a new list with all of the items in that list. So we can add a list of ints to another list of ints. We're just going to get one brand new list with all of the ints in there, assuming this actually works. No, let's skip it for now because we are running out of time. What would make more sense than summing all of our lists together would be sorting all of our lists. Let's say we want to sort all of our lists from least to greatest or greatest to least, whichever one. We can, for that, we would need a equals method. And for the time being, I'm just going to put pass in there. We would need an equals, a less than, and a greater than.
Sorry, what does pass do?
Oh, pass just means skip this line. Yeah.
Because you have to have something.
Yeah. You need to have something on the line. Pass is just there saying, this line exists, but just don't do anything.
Right.
So we can leave it like that, and it will run. It's syntactically correct. So this, yeah. So these all return Boolean values. So let's say, and we assume if we want to keep, well, yeah, I'm not going to deal with that. If the other is indeed a chest, it's comparable. We're going to compare that other.items. Let's actually do, because we're doing the values, so let's do sum. We're going to be comparing the sum of other.items and saying, does it equal the sum of self.items? I just had an epiphany. Let's actually make this a little cleaner. Let's just create so what we're going to do here is we're going to create a property. This syntax in Python is called a decorator. It is a function that takes another function. All that this, when you see this in a class, it just means that when you call this function, and we're going to call it value, it does treat it as though it's a variable, but it's computed whenever it's called. And in this case, it's going to return the value of the chest is the sum of all of the gold in that chest. And just to give an example, before we get down to there, let's do print good chest dot value. Oops. We print that out. Yeah, I had it on the whole time.
Could you go back up to
So when we call dot property, just like we did with items, but instead of calling a function, it's just calculating that value at any time. If we were to go in afterwards and change the value, now we call or we change the list of items. Let's say we add a piece of gold into there. We call value again, because we call dot value. It's going to calculate the brand new value of our chest. And now that we have that, instead of doing some other dot items everywhere in these, we can just call dot value, and it looks a whole lot cleaner to just say, well, if these chests are equivalent to each other, if their value is the same, we can then copy this down.
Property, correct?
Yep, and we're just calling that property. We can copy this down, say return true, and actually this might make return that this object is less than this other object if this object's value is less than that object's value, and in same thing for greater than. So just replace this down here, except we flip the sign the other direction. Return greater than if the value is greater. So if we were to, if we go down here and do print good chest is equal to bad chest, we should get false. And I'm also going to do, is the good chest greater than, and is it less than the bad chest? So they are not the same. The good chest is greater than the bad chest, and it is less than the bad chest. Oh, that doesn't look right at all, does it? Those should have both been true. Well, I wonder if this is going to work, because I believe instead of some chests, if we try to do print sorted, or I'm actually going to, it would be sorted from least to most. So if we call sorted on our list of chests, I believe by implementing the equals than and either or of the greater than or less than, it should have enough to be able to order the chests by their value from least to greatest, which means that our chest list should go from bad to good. Went from bad to good. Yes. And so I can quickly run through one more, little more esoteric example that I think is really cool, or have time for questions because it's 8:30. Esoteric example it is. All right.
One quick one.
Okay.
It didn't change from false to true.
Yeah, I know. I have no idea what's going on with that, but it worked. Yeah. Yeah. What can you do? My paycheck is not coming from this code. Yeah.
So you're saying
the fact that we got false for that the good chest was less than the bad chest, which is not what should have happened. Nah. Anyway, so in Python, there is the with statement that is very useful when dealing with files or any kind of I/O connection. You usually see it with something like with open, and then you give it a file name as fin, let's say fin.read, and then you do more stuff down here, and that the open is what's called a context manager around that the file that opens the file contents into memory, and then when you're done, when you exit out of the indented block, it then closes it because you're not using it anymore. So it physically closes the file so that the program is no longer using it directly. The memory is just the data is just loaded into memory. We can do that with our chests. Let's say that we have a property up here called locked, and is Boolean, and by default, the chest is locked. And let's do a yeah, and then yeah, because we're changing the class definition. Let's do add gold. We have a self, and then we have a value here, which we do there. It returns nothing. If let's see, if it is not locked, or if not self.locked, then we can go ahead and append. So items.append our value. You're good. Now, if we try to let's do print good chest. We'll then do good chest.add gold, and we're going to give it 10 more gold into there, and let's print the chest again. It shouldn't add it, but we have dunder methods that will both work with each other, saying I think it's called enter. We give it self, it doesn't do anything, and when we enter something, it's going to set self.locked equals false, and then copy this down here for exit, and we're going to set it back to true. And I'm hoping that this is what's... Oh, right. I'm actually just going to ignore the other values because those are exit cases. With, yeah, self.locked equals true. Copy both of these. Oops. Now, instead... Okay. I think we can do with good chest as chest. Then we'll just be able to do, then we can do chest up there. I'm feeling a little iffy because I haven't made an example like this that's that small because we're not initializing anything. Yeah, because it returns. Chest is none type. Yeah. Let's double check this. Enter exit context manager. Thank you. Now, where do they have that example? Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Okay. Now, just to make sure that this, let's say we're trying to insert a whole heck of a lot of gold, but because we have it outside of this context, that lock is not switching. And with this example, yep, it wasn't able to do it. And in fact, if we wanted to, in our add gold here, we could do if instead of doing this, we could say, I want you to raise an error or raise an exception. And here's actually where we can use that F string inside here. F is locked. And instead of we should see an error. Hey, we unlocked the chest, we added 10, and then when we tried adding other stuff, we raised an error because the chest was locked. So, that was a whirlwind. Dunder methods are very useful when you want to make your code work a little more natively, like when you're working with more native Python types. They can make your code much more easy to read and understand for whatever sad soul needs to look at your code after you. This is one of the many use tools in your toolbox to not make it as painful for the next person. Okay. So that's it for me. Got a couple more questions.
If we have time, I just tried doing the add method,
Mhm.
and I noticed that I had to basically type check, like if the items is greater than 0, add this to the, then you can take the two chest objects, right? But usually when you're saying overload the add function, you're adding two
Yeah.
like chest adding to a chest. Obviously, chests don't have adding functions by them. So do you see? So in practice, do you usually have to like type check when you're trying to overload, say, an add function?
Yeah, to some degree. In Python, because it is untyped, there's nothing. There's the checking. You have to be the one to check. The language itself is not going to check for you because it's not strongly typed. And you actually just gave me an idea. Because I bet for the add method, the int value was the initial value. So if I add, when I'm starting to sum up a list together, like what we were trying to do, I bet it was starting with 0 and then trying to add 0 to a list from before. So I bet if we just do add self other, I'm not gonna worry about it. We can do if not other, which this is going to evaluate to false for anything that is not considered a value or doesn't contain a value. None is none. It is literally not a value. 0 will evaluate to false. An empty string will evaluate to false. An empty list, an empty dict, so on and so forth. So if it gives us none, if it gives us 0, anything else, then we can just go ahead and return our initial value, which is the sum of our own items. Otherwise, we can try returning, well, I think we tried this before and it was not working.
Yeah, well, I had to type check. You had to like put a bunch of cases in there. You had to put more code than you really wanted.
Yeah. Oh, let's do some print statements. I want to know what other is, and I want to know the type of it as well. Let's just have what we had before with that self.items. Oh, and then let's, to keep it simpler than the example we had earlier, what is good chest plus bad chest, and put it in print. And I'll comment out this stuff below. That worked. So it might have been something that we were doing earlier with the summing the list that might have been weird, but that add one is working just fine. Let's try printing sum of, and I got rid of the chests from before, so let's do our good chest and our bad chest again. Yeah, it's clearly expecting some other dunder method that I'm not sure. As if we're not getting kicked out.
Waiting with some cupcakes.
Oh yeah, we do have cupcakes because you haven't had one yet. Oh, we need to implement an iter. Whose sum will be the sum of the values just over. Okay. So, oh, this actually is another good dunder method that completely overlooked. So, def iter. I'm going to need to refer back to that in just a second too. Yield. So this is a little more syntactically complex. There's not a whole lot of times in normal Python use cases where you need to use the yield keyword, but iteration is one of them. So when let's do for item in self.items yield item. So yield is just saying when someone calls for blank in me, meaning the chest, what object do we return each time they say give me an item? That's yield item. So if that's all we need, if that's what we're doing for sum there, not quite. But just to show that that iter is in fact working, let's do for value, or for golden chest maybe. Print gold. I would love it if it printed gold. Oh yeah, that's right. Hey, there it goes. So now we iterated through all of the gold that was in that chest. I'm sure there's still something missing in here. I don't know why.
You always have to use the keys function.
Well, keys is only necessary when using a dictionary. So that person object that we had before, the person dict with name equals or name Nate status bad. If we called .keys on that, it would give us name and status. If we called .values, it would give us Nate and bad. And then if we called .items, it would give us tuples of the key value pairs in there. So if we have a dictionary, yeah, there. Now we're just gonna call it there. But we're going another tangent. Thank you all for coming out. I didn't mention it before, but we live stream these meetings at live.pyorl.org, and the video from this meeting is going to be on the YouTube channel Orlando Python, or you can get to it at watch.pyorl.org. If you have a talk idea, reach out to either of us on meetup.
Grab a card.
Grab the cupcake. Everyone knows something that other people want to learn. So we'll see you all next month.